Hey there everybody, this is R. Felix Finch, also known as Chaotically Lawful, also known as Broke Law Student. And yeah, sorry, it's been busy. I've been trying to earn money for law school, I've been trying to earn money to move, really. And that has been a nightmare in itself. That's going to be my next video, is talking about how I'm pretty much in debt before day one. Just the move to law school is going to be expensive, but that's not what today's video is about. Today's video, we are talking about my essays. Now, you're going to be told by a lot of admissions consultants, people in general, and even deans of admission that if your LSAT score or your GPA is in question, it might come down to your essays. Again, in my case, I know a lot of stuff came down to my character and fitness, unfortunately, but I do believe some of my essays did pull me up at least into waitlist territory for the 14 places where I did get waitlisted, opposed to my 30 rejections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my personal statement, my adversity statement, and afterward I'm going to tell you how I did my character and fitness addenda, which again is just a whole thing I really hope none of you have to do. But if you do, I'm going to tell you kind of how I did it, because again, applying to 49 schools, I had to make it slightly different for each. So let's get started with my personal statement. So here's the thing. I don't have a lot of professional experience within the area of law. I'm not a person who has dreamed about being a lawyer their entire life. In fact, if the world wasn't going to shit, I would probably be doing hair. I really like that, but instead, no, I had to defend democracy. But I do have a unique experience within the world of professional wrestling, so that's where my personal statement focused. And let's get on with my personal statement. Now, there are going to be different places that have different requirements. Make sure you read the personal statement requirements. Some of the places I had to shorten mine. Some of them I had to add a paragraph or two to add other questions or to answer other prompts that were in the essays. And some I actually, like Berkeley, I just had to make a completely different personal statement for. But anyway, here's my, in general, personal statement. A thunderous crowd of dedicated fans gathered from across the globe to experience the multi-million-dollar exposition combining sport and entertainment, ready to bring down the arena as though it were the walls of Jericho the moment they spot their favorite superstar. This is not where you'd find me. Instead, I was more readily found at the local VFW hall to take part in a production of a significantly smaller scale. If you had met me within the past 18 years, you'd be greeted by lively music followed by my height, weight, hometown, and alter ego being announced over a PA system as I made my way through the curtain in only the most fashionable crushed velvet and spandex. This was my reality in the world of professional wrestling. More specifically, it was my experience on the independent wrestling circuit, where the glow of the big leagues is coveted by all but earned by few. My time in the business having reached the age of maturity, I found myself recovering from a double shoulder surgery in a world without shows thanks to a minor case of global pandemic, and came to the only reasonable conclusion for the next step in my career: law school. Most influential in my decision to benefit professional wrestling through the practice of law was my experience as labor. There was no salary, no workplace protections or insurance were offered, and my income relied on how many shows I performed, how much merch I sold, and how well I advocated for myself with the promoter. This brutal cycle forced me to become an active participant in my own exploitation in order to participate in my beloved art form. Elevation does not equal alleviation, however, and those who achieve the dream of signing a contract with one of the major televised and touring promotions are still forced to continue laboring as an independent contractor, receiving none of the protection and stability offered to salaried employees, while also being prohibited from obtaining opportunities outside of a single company, as true contractors are free to do. As a lawyer, I will be properly equipped to obtain the benefits for others that were withheld during my tenure performing. Professional wrestling is truly a global enterprise, serving a variety of communities around the world. Communities with little in common but a guaranteed shared love of sports entertainment. Still, within each individual community, there are a diversity of backgrounds. Whether I performed in London, Austin, Las Vegas, or Virginia Beach, my challenge was to connect with the fans in attendance and ensure they were satisfied with the show they had patronized. This meant conversations after shows and during intermission where I would get to interact personally with members of the audience and do everything in my power to make sure they wanted to see me again. And, if I was particularly successful, purchase my pins and t-shirts. This meant adapting my mindset to relate to those who struggled in poverty as well as those who owned international businesses, those who were deeply religious as well as the agnostic. The constant varied interaction fostered an adaptability that has proven itself to be among my most valuable skills for interpersonal relations. I foresee the experience of practicing law thrusting me before a variety of personalities with whom I'll be expected to cooperate to accomplish common goals in the same way I coordinated with wrestlers from around the world to put on a match worth remembering. Not only was I a performer, but I was contracted as a writer for both a wrestling retrospective channel and an online wrestling magazine. These required me to dedicate hours of research to both the subject of the content and the audience demographics. The arena of the internet required me to present information that was not only thorough, but accurate. My experience has taught me that there are few entities more critical than an online comment section filled with people with time to spare and the belief that the author is incorrect. When areas of dispute did arise, I had to be prepared to defend my writing with accessible sources and citations. My time in professional wrestling tested my body physically, but it also augmented my mind with abilities and traits critical to my capacity to succeed in my chosen path beyond the ring. While my experiences point me toward wanting to defend the rights of the laborer, I recognize that through experiential learning, I may discover that I'm better suited to advocate in another capacity. I look forward to the experiences offered the moment I pass through your gates and begin my journey toward legal practice in earnest. Now, like I said, that's just my personal statement. I think I covered a lot, and I kind of focus on the area of labor because that's where I have the most experience. But like I said, I don't know what kind of law I'll be best at. I have not taken a single law class, so I will find out at the same time they do. Taking a completely different approach was my adversity statement or perspective statement, depending on where it was being put in. This just kind of was something that I thought I uniquely shared, or at least few people shared. My final semester at Brooklyn College, I was homeless. I've been very upfront about this. I lived in my car, and it was a wild experience, especially the reason why I was living in my car. I got deactivated by DoorDash. It was a pain in the butt. I got reactivated later, but by then it was too late to really make much of a difference. So that's what my perspective covers, and let's go into that. I have had the pleasure and misfortune of maturing into a man of multiple worlds. I'm a black man who is denied acceptance of the black community due to my mixed islander heritage and prototypically white mannerisms and hobbies. Separate from issues arising from racial identity and the sociological phenomena associated with it, I have participated in several unorthodox employment arrangements and find myself even now completing my degree in a state of de facto homelessness. It is these multiple worlds that have combined to provide me a worldview, the product of not just understanding disadvantage, but having personally lived it. Housing has been a constant struggle in my adult life. There's an order to the system here. You prove you have consistent, reliable income, and you get an opportunity to be considered for housing. However, it's not a system that is beneficial to someone whose income has not been consistent. It's not a system that benefits you if you have a magical number that the overlords of FICO deem unworthy. Add to this that my forms of employment meant I was rarely committed to a single location, and it gets easier to see how this affects me. As an itinerant performer, I have been fortunate to have friends allow me to stay on couches or in spare bedrooms. Their actions have been a living example of the power of compassion and doing what you can for your fellow man, but unofficial arrangements do nothing to build a credit score or establish a rental history acceptable to future landlords. Although not always ideal, I've slept in my car when necessary. Even now, finishing my final semester in New York City, my car serves as a portable apartment, allowing me to sleep outside a gym where I can shower in the morning before driving to school. This current situation is the result of discovering how truly powerless workers are when it comes to employment in the gig economy. When I arrived in New York City for my first semester at Brooklyn College in January of this year, DoorDash deactivated my account only to reactivate it 3 months later on appeal, having found that I had not violated any rules. But it took 3 months of calling and left me out of work, kept me from housing, kept me from leisure, and forced me to focus on survival, all while attempting to complete my studies. This was a refresher of two truths. First, there are life-altering circumstances that people are thrust into rather than directly cause. Second, advocacy is a powerful tool and can be the difference between surviving and thriving. The recent decision in Grants Pass versus Johnson emphasizes to me the need for those like myself to be active members of the legal community and equipped to speak on these matters. The idea that one can suffer legal consequences for not having shelter is cruel and unethical, and this decision could not have been informed by the voices of those who have suffered through the situation of living in a car, tent, or other temporary form of housing. I have personally seen, through my father's experience as a felon, that an increase in criminal consequences can make an already difficult situation harder to escape. I firmly believe that lived experience makes one a stronger advocate when it comes to a cause. And this is just one of those struggles I face where I am equipped to advocate from a direct point of view. Knowing that one's world can collapse as a result of one bad day, and having come so close to that day on many occasions in my life, drives me to be an opposing force against the cruelty of circumstance. There are two dominant worldviews. I struggled, therefore anyone should be able to handle struggle, or I struggled, therefore I will do everything in my power to ensure nobody else must. I choose the latter. Like I said, that adversity statement, I liked it. That's about a page and a half. I did have to trim it for a few places that only wanted a one page. In that case, I reached for our friends Strunk and White at the Elements of Style to try to figure out how to trim that. Yeah, this was somewhat helpful, but, maybe just have a one-page one ready to go as it is. Like I said, I made modifications, but I would make sure you can just have something that you can use frequently. Look up the requirements and just make sure you match them. Now, obviously, I'm not saying those are perfect essays. In fact, they are clearly not perfect essays. I got 30 rejections. So, at about a 60% rejection rate, I would say those are far from perfect, but those are just mine, and I'm sharing them because I think it's good to be transparent with what this process is like. Finally, though, let me take you into my character and fitness addendum. I will be honest, I'm going to give you the structure of my addenda. I'm not going to read my addenda because, personally, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not fully comfortable sharing, especially within the history of arrests that don't have charges. But like I've said before, my past does include welfare fraud and grand theft. So, again, those are two very big no-nos for the law. I can see why I got rejected by so many schools. But what I did was I kind of made a master form, and I made it into different sections. First off was my juvenile record. And I would say, so in your juvenile record, separate that into any kind of diversion and any kind of conviction, depending on what you have. Next up, I had arrests without charges because some places ask. I think it's unfair. Also, make sure you have the dates of these because some places will ask for the past 10 years, some places will ask past 5 years. Some places will ask all time. It really depends. Expunged or dismissed convictions I had next, because some places will ask you about things that are no longer on the record and they want candor. Next up I had actual convictions. Now, the next things are things that aren't exactly one-to-one, like terminations. Not everybody asks about those, but having those ready is good to know. Especially if they're related to your other ones, because like a couple of my arrests, I actually got terminated from my job because I got arrested on the job, even though they did not result in charges. It is not fun. Driver's license suspension, because a couple do ask about that. Moving violations, there are which are tickets to traffic tickets. A couple ask about traffic tickets. That's not too common. Usually traffic tickets are considered minor enough to not have to talk about. Interruption of studies is one that shows up for me. I took a gap decade between my first time at community college and my second time, so that was there for me. And separately, I had an armed forces discipline addendum, because separately that was usually asked about, and I did get an other than honorable discharge, and I had 2 instances of non-judicial punishment while I was in the Navy. And yeah, that covers a lot of my written materials. So I hope you've already started. Things open in 2 months. I was lucky that some things I was able to get, like my personal statement, my adversity statement. Oh, and my resume. I didn't talk about my resume. My resume is well, I had a lot of help because I don't have a lot of personal experience. Hopefully, you are coming from a position with a little more experience. Find something that helps you with a law school specific resume. So have your education up front, because that's kind of the most important thing to them. Then your experiences, then your clubs, any kind of other activities. And I'll throw a link to a read copy of my resume in the description. If you want to see it, it's not impressive at all. Why you'd want to read it is beyond me, but it's an example that was approved by Spivey Consulting, and it got me some acceptances, so I'll throw it in there and you can let me know what you think of my resume. Anyway, I thank you for watching. The next video again will be about kind of the financial situation of applying to law school. Spoiler alert, it is brutal, it is unfair, and it is not great, but I'll share more details about that later. In the meantime, if you do want to help me move to law school, please check out brokelawstudent.com. I'm starting a TikTok at The Broke Law Student, so check that out. You can find me on Instagram as well. I'll probably be changing the branding to The Broke Law Student. And may the odds ever be in your favor. Good luck with your writing, and yeah, get it reviewed by as many people that you trust as you can. Put your best foot forward going forward in admissions. Peace out, party peoples. I will see you next time.